So, hello and welcome to the 1% podcast. Today you have Mr. Rob Cafferky on. Now, myself and Rob have been working together for the last 7, 8 months, I think it would be. Rob's actually just finished up working in the program and he's now out in the wild on his own, living the dream, so to speak. I wanted to get Rob on because his story is really cool. He was potentially a little bit skeptical about doing sort of personal development coaching anyway, but I think we'll talk about this, recognized he wanted to make a change, but also like the rest of us, busy, kids at home, hectic job, and I think being able to show himself, you can definitely find a path through that. And I think Rob's chat is a very powerful one, so I wanted him to talk about it. He's kindly taken some time out of his day to talk to us. That being said, Rob, do you just want to just introduce yourself, a bit about you, what do you do?
Yeah. I'm Rob. I am 34, I think nowadays. Living up in the northwest, Leafy, Lancashire. Suppose in order of priority, I am a dad to Archie, who's our 3.5 year old son. Husband to Kim, and we've also got our 5-year-old golden doodle at home. So that's the clan. I suppose the golden Harvey was our firstborn. So I think, yeah, from a home life, that is home. Work by title, I'm an account director within the sort of third party logistics sector, working for a large global player, but on a sort of European UK scale. So spent the last year and a half in working for those. Prior to that, I was kind of ops director level within a more sort of SME business, but within the same sector. And I'm also a trustee for a UK charity melanoma fund, which raises awareness for skin cancer education and awareness for youth across the country. And then for my sins, I sort of restarted or started my senior leadership masters at Leeds Uni recently as well. So yeah, that's, I suppose, in a nutshell. That I think that's me, Luke.
Busy boy, lots going on, I would say, right?
Well, not as busy as some of the other guys on the program, but relative to me and my selfish 20s, yeah, I would say busier and
A lot of
less time,
responsibilities, I think, fair to say, right?
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Well, let's rewind the conversation, and I think a good point anyway to at least jump off, because you've had a journey prior to even speaking to me about other things, Rob, as well. Like, let's rewind. I think it was about 6, 7 months into the past, you'd seen an ex-colleague slash boss of yours has had post about working with me, gone through the process. I think you looked at a few of my bits, dropped me a message, reached out for a chat. What was going off with you back then that made you think, right, I want to have a chat with somebody like me?
Yeah, it was the reference of an old boss and somebody whose sort of opinion I value. But I think, look, we'd gone through. When I say we, me and Kim had gone through probably 3 years of perfect storm of life changing events, so good and bad. We got married. Archie arrived. We'd moved house. We'd relocated from Yorkshire, sort of back over this way. We'd left our jobs or roles with companies that we'd been with for 4 or 5 plus years. So there was a lot going on. We'd had ill health or diagnoses with our parents or my mum, father-in-law, and then again, without not to get the violin out, we'd had sort of my skin cancer diagnosis, which was a stage 3 sort of melanoma. So it it had just been a whirlwind of survival mode from
Mhm.
literally day to day, week to week, one life event to the next one, without any real sort of no clear direction. So I think, fortunately, the ill health with our parents and my own has kind of played out probably as positively as it could have done. And I think once the dust started to settle a little bit, you start getting scan results. Archie gets to 2, starts different nursery. I realised something needed to change, because I'd got this perspective on life that I never really
Mhm.
asked for or wanted, but I'd got it, and it was the best thing that had ever happened. So yeah, and I think I'd had coaching in a work professional environment, um, it did have a bit of a ripple effect at home, but it was obviously very weighted towards work environment and being a leader and all that sort of good stuff. And it was pretty career changing a couple of years back. And I was like, oh, hang on a minute. If if my priority these days is home, if you kind of transfer that sort of method and apply it to home, surely there's a way of being better.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I suppose that's what led me to, but I didn't know what I was going to do with that information. I just knew I needed some help, but I was cynical of your generic 20-odd-year-old Instagram PT type sort of life program changing. But through the powers of LinkedIn and referrals, I got in contact with you.
Yeah. Well, firstly, you say get your violin out, mate. I think put your violin away, but I mean that in the right way. Like I think there's a valid reasons for feeling as you would, right? I think no one listening to this or anyone would say otherwise. And something you said there, different things, but I've had things happen in life which give you a boom, complete change in perspective as well. And you would never choose it or ask for it, but actually like you said, you wouldn't change that perspective because you go older per second. There's other things that are more important here than just the things that I am worrying about. And so using that as a catalyst to make some change, I think is incredibly powerful. And so fair play, mate. You had lots going on. And then when we spoke, I think you'd recognize that okay, I know I want to need to make some changes. I've seen applying personal development in a work capacity and the impact that can have. I'm recognizing there's elements here that I'm struggling with a bit that aren't working. Well, how about we apply that same kind of logic to myself and see what happens? And I think it was probably fortuitous. That's the headspace you're in. You saw, well, I can say his name because Andy doesn't mind. He's shared about it. Andy's post. And then you were like, oh, hold up a second, because it's someone you know and respect, right? If he's going to get the value out of it, and also we'll touch on this in a second, so I don't want to put words in your mouth, Rob. I think you'd said like I'm not that bothered about my physique. Like it's not a physical thing. It's about balance, boundaries, headspace, being more present. The kind of stuff people say. So I think the thought of like some 22-year-old going, do some burpees but it's just not. It's not viable. So I think there's a fair healthy skepticism around that, right? I'm sure we'll go on to talk about this. That isn't what it is either, right? But I think the other thing that perhaps you didn't realize is that as a part of the bigger whole, looking after, and I'm pointing at my body for anyone listening, your body also has a bearing in it. It isn't just fitness at all, but equally to ignore that, I think you're missing a decent slice. And so I guess that's the place in which we engage. What would you say was the burning bridge for you? What was you like, right, what was the thing that's thinking you might, I need to change? What was it that was pushing that?
I think the bit for me was, and I didn't realize it, and I didn't grasp it. It was self-esteem. And look, I had, and we have, and still have everything on paper that you could wish for. A happy, healthy, bubbly 3-year-old, the new build house, nice cars, good jobs, whatever. But I was like, there's something missing, and it was me, and still it's not finished, but I couldn't. If you think about, when I think about my typical day 6, 7, 8 months ago, wake up when Archie woke us up, whether he, very rarely has a lie in, but anytime after 6, but roll out of bed, wherever, he's in control of what we're doing, but within 20 minutes, you're scrolling your phone, checking emails, and just that whole bit eroding and saying, oh, I'm going to go for a run tomorrow, never going for a run, doing 2,000 steps a day, or not even knowing how many steps I was doing because I never really even thought about it. It's just a lot, really, Luke, as far as, and I just didn't realise at the time. No, it's all right. It just erosion of, you've got a phrase for it, but it's that you tell yourself you're going to do something, you don't do it, and if you multiply that out over weeks, months, you start to think yourself, quite negative of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's those commitments to oneself that are or aren't kept. To be clear, no one's perfect, no one's a robot, right? We're never gonna do it all the time. I mean, maybe Jocko Willink does, or David Goggins, or I don't know, insert sort of, ridiculous person. But I think for us mere mortals, being accepting of, you're never going to get this stuff on it 24/7. It's impossible. However, if there is a lot of those commitments you're talking about that aren't being kept and that compounds, that really builds up in quite a negative way, I think. So, like you said there, right, I'm going to get up and do some exercise. You press snooze twice and your son wakes you up. Right, I'm not going to be on my phone. I'm going to be present. You snap it, your missus, you're distracted on your phone. Right, I'm going to eat some healthy, you grab some shit, and then you put on your clothes to feel a bit shit. You're not there. Right, you get to work, have a different conversation with that supplier and do that. You procrastinate, you ignore it. When you get home, I won't be on my phone. I'll be present for bedtime. You're jigging on your phone. Like, I'm not going to have a glass of wine to take the edge off. You do. Not like I said, none of those things in isolation once is no biggie. But if there's a lot of that, you're sort of telling yourself internally you don't do what you say. And the insidious thing, I think that's the outwardly looking in, oh, it's on paper, it looks great, I feel shit, is that no one really sees any of those commitments. You do, though. And so you know what you're doing and not doing. So if that's misaligned, if you're happy with all that, fine. Who cares? Like, I mean, no judgment. If that's how you want to live your life, fine. And that's not saying anything like a sort of a reverse psychology way. But the most of the people I speak to aren't happy with that, and it doesn't feel good. And so I think realigning that stuff so those commitments are being kept and made, I think that's a much more positive place to be. And I think the converse is completely true as well. You make commitments and keep them on repeat, big and small. All of a sudden, you're like, oh, I feel pretty good. And then nothing
And,
external changed, right?
and I remember you saying, or what it was like, a lot of the guys that join the program kind of know what they need to do. They're just not doing it. And I actually didn't. I didn't have a fucking clue what to do. I just knew. But and I suppose I was a bit worried that I was signing up for something that I wouldn't be able to sort of commit or deliver and do. But that's the beauty of the program and the magic, that actually it's quite easy to build the foundations and build it up. So yeah.
Well, that's a nice segue on to kind of talking about where we are and where we sit today, Rob. So I think fair to say a lot of work, a lot of stuff's happened between when we first spoke versus engaging, and then now you're out of the process and you're on your own. What, given everything we just said there, then what would you say have been your key learnings, successes, having come through this process? And again, it's also putting it from that, what was maybe potentially a skeptical mindset at first, which is totally fair, fair play. Like, what have you learned then, and I guess, and how are you applying it?
Well, I'm nearly 2 stone lighter without really feeling like I've tried, which and considering I'm that wasn't my priority, and it was, and everything else. But no, I think the key bit, Luke, has been figuring out what your priorities in life are by just having a bit of headspace and the mental clarity, or to do it, and being intentional with where you spend your time, uh, because it is hard, and not always what needs to happen in a week doesn't always fit in a week, and it never will, no matter how early you get up or how late you work, or it. But it's just being more intentional and being all right with that. It's been massive. And there's been things along the program, and both Blueprint and Collective, but really being intentional, and reflection, which I suppose are more of the headspace sort of mental stuff, and I suppose that's why I joined. So that's that massive tick. And then there's been a plethora of other stuff, around exercise and nutrition, that I'd always ignored, because I thought, well, I'm not that intelligent, but I'd like to think I'd get my head around it if I tried. But I've always just said, I don't really get it, so it's easy just to eat what I want, drink as much as I want, within reason. I'm not, drink wasn't a massive problem, especially at this stage of life with Archie and everything else. But just knowing how to lose a bit of timber and not be chippy tits in the mates WhatsApp group anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just.
Well, I think there's a few points there. One, we actually had this conversation on one of our one-to-ones, Rob. I remember it was about, I think it was you'd asked me, you said, of the people when they finish up, like, what do you think defines the ones that are going to be the most successful with this stuff? And the reality is, I get guys on 2, 3, 4 years and they're still going well, and what facilitates that. And I mean, of course, I'm going to say this, but I think most people that finish the process do quite well afterwards. And what is it? And it's exactly what you just said there. I think the superpower, it's some form of self-reflection, and then being intentional with what you're doing. Now that might sound a bit esoteric or woo-woo, but really it isn't, right? It's just being a bit more conscious about your life, what you've got, what's really there, what you can do, and then owning that and being on top of it. So, for example, if you want to go out and get smashed, do it and enjoy it, but then also be totally aware of the consequences and not, again, in a reverse psychology way. And like, okay, well, that's it. So what am I going to do about it? But then the converse is true as well, like being intentional around, well, like when I'm spending time with Archie, I'm going to spend time with Archie, and my phone and everything else can fuck off. And that little pocket of 10 or 15 minutes, but you do that right, that can be the most valuable part of your day, and that's okay, even if you've had a hectic day. And I think that's that intentionality piece. But to be able to be intentional, be reflective on what you're doing, also comes from being in a good space mentally and physically, I think, as in just your general overall state. If you're in the place that you were describing, a few months back, much harder to be objective, reflective, intentional, because you're kind of just getting pulled from pillar to post and there isn't any structure or thought going behind it. If you're feeling physically and mentally better in yourself, your overall energy state is better. I think then you're better able to be reflective, intentional. And so it's kind of putting both of those pieces together as I see it. Does that
I mean, if you'd have said I'd be journaling almost daily 8 months ago, I'd have closed the laptop and ended the call, sort of thing. And you didn't. You dropped it in further down. But it stuff like that, woo woo, call it what you want. But it for me, and it's different for everyone. But as a rule of thumb, it works, and for me, it works because you get, in a work perspective, I've got customers, I've got 200 plus colleagues that, directly, indirectly, that have all going through challenges that become your challenges one way or another.
totally.
You come home, you've got all the usual stuff going on at home. Even when life is ticking over it nicely, there's just not enough space in your head for all of that. And so little things like the journaling and just, you said then about, you want to go out and get smashed. Well, yeah, I used to do that probably every weekend in my 20s. I now probably do it once a quarter if I'm lucky with the lads. But through this program, I've still done it the same amount of times. I've just been intentional, say, in a fortnight, I'm going out and I am going to enjoy it. I am probably going to feel rough, but I'm going to get out the next day and do a little bit, whatever that needs to be. Whereas before, the day would have been a write off. And then before you know it, you're rolling into Monday, work starts, home starts. And so, yeah, it just subtle changes that are not actually that difficult, but
It's the ability, I think, as well, like you said, good or bad, to be able to roll with what life's presenting with you. A planned big night out with your mates, that will have consequences. That's okay, right? If you plan for them, you're not going to feel like Batman the next day. You're probably going to have to compromise what you do. It doesn't make you a piece of shit or a bad person. It's just the choices you made there. But then it doesn't also then have to bleed into the rest of your day and your week and everything else. And I think just a bit of forthright planning around that one example. But then again, being more intentional around work, like you have a stressful day at work and clients are being, difficult. But then what you just said there, which is really important and telling, is going, well, they've got their problems and they become your problems. And so, like, having the empathy to go, clients kicking off, what's really going on? And that's where the journaling can be helpful as well, because initially it's just like you're getting shouted at for whatever reason. I could respond in that way. That's not going to help anyone. Well, I also don't want to absorb all that negative energy. So I can just go, well, what's really going on with them? How can I help them best? That helps you process that situation better. But equally, it doesn't rob you of your headspace and bandwidth. So then when you walk through the door being dad and a husband, you're in a better place to do it. Now, do we get all this right perfectly? Am I saying you're walking around like a Zen monk? No, I'm not. None of us are. But if we've got these tools to help check ourselves and do that, it means we can better arm ourselves in these situations. And we've had situations with myself and you, Rob, and myself included, just to be clear, where things haven't gone so well and something has happened at home or at work, and you're like, well, I didn't do all that with the best. But rather than ignoring it, because you've been in a process, we've used that as a catalyst to understand and learn and keep moving forward. And I think that's as important. Like, we're never going to get everything all the time, and that's okay. But we can learn from it, and that's the big bit, right?
Yeah, I think when I joined, I'd said that, kind of touched on it earlier, by sheer luck and, and the wonders of the NHS, we'd managed to get through this storm of, and add a bit of headspace. But I'm also not naive enough to think that life won't just do something, if I think about some of the stuff that the guys have shared on the group over the last few months, that stuff crops up in life, and it will do for, just because I've had something in my early 30s, it doesn't mean that life's going to say, "Oh, give him an easy time, give him an easy time for his, however many more years I've got on." So I wanted to be, I'm not naive to that, and I wanted to be in a position where, well, actually, when that does happen, I actually have some tools in an armory to be able to deal with it, and in a better way than what I did. Because it's fair to say a lot of it was just ignoring it or hoping it'll go away, and it did, or it has, but it could have been very different. And I think the impact at home is pretty seismic.
Well, that's a prime example of like you getting stage 3 skin cancer is not a choice of yours in any way, shape, or form, and so you were dealt a very, very shit hand there, right? Um,
For
but
anyone that's listening, that goes on holidays in the 20s on the lads already, make sure they put sun cream on, because as much as I didn't ask for it, I was probably at fault for a lot of it. So
even so, though, so fine. That bit being said, but I guess my point I was getting to is that even within that, and you're in a situation, there are elements with under that you can control, right?
yeah, absolutely.
Likewise with ourselves, even not something as extreme as that. Like sometimes you can be in a place in life where work's overwhelming, it's difficult to be a good dad at home, and everything just feels like it's insurmountable. I don't have time, a super common one. And I think when you're in that state, you miss the fact you have so much more agency than you think. And that isn't like go and do 2 hours a day in the gym or suddenly be a monk and never be on your phone or tell all your clients to fuck off at 4 p.m. and go and play golf. It's not that either. But it's like there are little pockets of things that you don't realize. And so you do have more control. And I think ultimately, we talked about that intentionality piece, going through a process to show you that, well, okay, there's better ways we can do stuff. So there's the practical nature, but equally there is more time and things there than we actually realize, and being able to own that and be on top of it rather than just being buffeted around. And I think that's then really sort of stacking the deck in your favor. We don't know what's going to come up in the future. Like you just said, we've got no idea, but I think if you feel like mostly you're doing what the best you can with what you've got, across the board with life, well, then that's all you can do and you're cool with that. And then that speaks right back to that self-esteem bit about making the commitments. Well, I'm mostly doing what I say I want to do and showing up as I want. Yeah, I'm pretty much. Well done. Am I perfect? No. Do I fuck up in front of my missus sometimes and say stupid shit? Of course I do. Like, do I shout? Yes, I do. But like, is like that more like, is that less the norm than it was? And then there we go. And then you can become that ongoing project to keep working on that, right?
Yeah, it's I think I remember early on in the weeks, in the program, when I'd the nature of the job, it takes you to glamorous locations. So I pulled up at the hotel in Doncaster, and normally it would be, I'll just get the laptop out and smash through 2 hours of emails and work, and then go to the pub and have a couple of pints, and we're like, well, actually, I'll just go for a walk. No, lovely walk around some canal in Doncaster. There's nice,
Yeah, I'm from
but
Donny as well.
I know you are. I know you are.
Yeah.
But it just that half an hour of headspace, does that make an acute difference to that day? That no, but doing that repetitively and having that headspace, and guess what? I've still got the same amount of emails in my inbox. I've still got the same amount. It doesn't materially change what needs to get done that day, that week. That's still there. Just those subtle changes, Luke, I suppose.
But it changes your ability to deal with that, right? There's a phrase I use a lot, and I'll use a less crass word, but like if it's from recovery. It's like if you meet 20 knobheads in a day, you're the knobhead, right? And I'm not calling you a knobhead, by the way, Rob. But the point I'm
I've
making
been
is,
called worse, but
as have I. It's it's that if it feels like everything's out to get you and it's all insurmountable and all the rest of it, like that sort of noise. Well, it's probably not everything else. It's you, right? Now, so what we're saying here is your exact circumstances, everything externally has not changed. It's the same, right? But all of a sudden, it's suddenly less stressful, less hectic, all the rest of it. And that's not because any of that's materially changed. It's your experience and ability to cope and deal with it. And that's exactly what you're saying. No, that's all still there, but it just, your ability to cope is different. And that's, I guess, that resilience piece. And for me, I think that's what we want. Like you described, some of the guys in the programs, like all sorts of stuff going on, and I'd never wish it on them. But what I get the biggest buzz off as a coach is they'll say some pretty intense stuff, and they go, "I'm all right." Like that's the win. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's been so stressful, but I'm okay. Like, and I think that because, and not that we want to just go through hardship, but like life is going to be difficult sometimes. And I think if you can then come through a difficult situation and feel okay, like, I'm doing all right. Like that's the win. And if you're feeling absolutely amazing and peaking in life, great. We want that more of that as well. But that's not always possible. And so I think if we can optimize for the I'm okay when it's hard bit, well, when life's good, it's good. Do you see what I mean?
yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And the group element, I don't like to kind of, but there's some inspirational stuff on there, and from the guys, and there was one of the lads who joined similar time to me, I think onto baby number 5 and still doing. And so on the days or the weeks where I thought, oh, I don't have time, you're like, well, actually, you do. And there's that sort of element of the group element, which is really, really nice and really key part of it.
Well, it gives you two things. I think it gives you that another dose of perspective, so you see a whole other angle. But it also makes you realize it's not just you. Like, and I think that's a huge part because I think we can often feel like, oh, is it just me? Because in life, you see everyone's sort of, LinkedIn, your colleagues, your clients,
Yeah.
everyone is sort of switched on, and we see that. You don't see any of the noise in their head. I'm pointing at my brain, by the way, or what's going off at home. So you just assume everyone's sorted. There are all these autonomous sort of perfect agents, and it's bollocks. Right? It's not true at all. Everyone fucked up. But being in a process where you get to see, I guess, the curtain lifted on some of that, you go, it's not just me. That's all right. And not that we're wallowing in pity or waving our knobs around either. But it's just, I think it's just helpful because it just gives you a bit of a, okay, chill out. It's all right. Everyone struggles with this stuff. But then those same people making choices and doing difficult stuff, you go, oh, well, if he's got that going on and he can do that, maybe I can. And so it helps on both levels, right?
Yeah, and it also gives you that we're often sort of the most critical on ourselves, and actually you get the, well, actually, if my mate was telling me this, what would I be saying to them? Okay, I didn't do 10,000 steps today, yesterday, whatever. Well, yeah, but why? Oh, because you were traveling up and down the country and there's only so many hours. Things like that. So it was really powerful with the group to have a bit of reflection and take a step back and say, well, actually, okay, I might have gone on my phone for an hour when I said I wasn't going to past 6 o'clock, but it's it's one day in the week. It doesn't change. You're not all of a sudden a knobhead again. It's
Exactly. And that's the other thing, reminding people, and I do that often, a lot of my job of a coach is going, yeah, okay, we need to fix that, and that's that, and that didn't go well, so what do we learn? Also, what about this, and this? And actually think about how you dealt with this week compared to 6 months ago. And then everyone goes, oh yeah, fair enough. Because we can be very, very self-critical, right?
the amount of time at work these days. My team, it's I keep saying to them, measure backwards. And they're like, what are you on about? And I'm like, just measure backwards. No, that's not a free pass to fail miserably.
No, exactly, yeah.
But, what are you doing today that you weren't doing 3 months ago? And for me, that really helped throughout the process and will continue because you get lost in the noise of day to day life and you forget, well, actually, I might have still only been doing 3,000 steps. I might have been reacting to Kim or Archie like a knobhead at times, and that's not okay. But actually, I don't do that now. Or I might do it once a month now rather than once a week.
Exactly.
Um,
And it's important
Probably,
to reflect on that. I mean, you said there it's really apt. Like, so the start of this year, business-wise for me, it's been a bit slower. You'd think in personal development, January is like the biggest month, but it's actually not, weirdly. And you get in your own head, oh my God, what's happening? And I have to go, just take a step back. Look at where the business was 6 months ago, 12 months ago, 18 months ago. And you go, oh, okay. And you can list off a litany of things that are different and better, and you go, just calm down. But it's important to be able to do that because if we get stuck on here and where we're not, that can be quite a toxic place. And that also can start to breed and kick off some of those things that we don't want and can snowball. And so being able to just have that little word with yourself, again, the reflection to stop and go, hold up, let's just chill out a little bit and see how far we've come. I think it's really important. Rob, it's been a pleasure chatting. I could talk for hours, as you know, so I won't take up any more of your time and chew you off anymore. Thank you so much for taking the time to come up and chat. I know anyone listening will have got a lot out of this conversation. Before we jump off, let's say someone's listening to this. Perhaps they were in a similar situation, headspace to kind of you were 6-7 months past, maybe on the fence in terms of like engaging with a coach or somebody like me. What would you say to someone in that place that you were as you sit today, having sort of done what you've done and achieved what you have?
simply do it. I think reach out, have the conversation. I'd imagine, Luke, I hope you don't mind me saying this, you're probably Marmite for most people. They either really like it and resonates or they'll disengage very early in it. But for me, do it, because if you're already watching the content or you're coming across it, it's probably because you think it's relevant to whatever's going on um, which is the position I suppose I was in. But do it. And then once you've done it, just show up and commit to it. But, it's been life changing, but not it's not intruded on life. Life has still continued for me, unless I tell people, you wouldn't know I was doing it. It's not, Hopefully people around me day to day see the difference sort of in my actions. But it's just do it and then show up. And if you do, you'll get the results out of it, whatever those results are, because they are different for each one of us depending on circumstances.
Well, if that's a great endorsement, if ever there was one, so thank you, Rob. And I'm going to say this, but I would totally agree. But of course, I would. I've got a lot of skin in the game. But no, I mean it, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure working with you. You should be incredibly proud of what you've achieved. And to speak to what you just said there, you haven't shied away from anything during the process. You've talked, you've opened up, you've given everything a go, and that's where real growth comes from. People say to me sometimes when I first speak to them, like, "When does this not work?" I've seen all your social media, and there's loads, like hundreds of people, smashing it, and when does it not work? And it's rare, but it's when something goes wrong, or you as the client feel like you messed up, or I ask you to do something you don't agree with, and you put your head in the sand, ignore it, and take a step back. If you do that, there's no way I can help as a coach, right? But for me, that is literally where the magic is, right? So when things are fucked up, you messed up, you've been triggered, you've done something, like that's actually where we start to change. You 1000% embraced all of that. You weren't scared of any of it. When you had issues, you talked about them. The results speak for themselves, mate. And so having done that work is why you're sitting here in a resilient place. And I'll get you on in another year, and I know you'll be smashing it still, and it'd be great to see.
Yeah,
Because
as long as I'm not chippy tits in 2 years,
yeah, you won't,
but it won't be.
you won't be. I love that phrase, chippy chip. But yeah, mate. I mean, it's been a pleasure. Well, thank you, Rob. If anyone is
Thank you.
watching him and they are interested in doing a little bit of work with me or finding out about how I can help, drop me a note in the comments or ping me a DM. Rob, it's been a pleasure. Go off and smash it. Otherwise, I'll see you guys next week. Cheers.